12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way.
How did this even happen? Who's responsible for this? What's going on with Alex Jones? Let's talk about it. First, let me thank the sponsor of today's video, 𝗦𝗡𝗦𝗡. 𝗦𝗡𝗦𝗡 makes excellent deodorants, but did you know that they also make body washes? Yeah, I got my grimy little paws on 3 different 𝗦𝗡𝗦 body washes: eucalyptus mint, citrus and herbal musk, and sea salt and cedar. I am thrilled to have these body washes that match my deodorant now because frankly, my friends, I love consistency, and these smell great. No lie, I had COVID last week and lost my sense of smell, but I could still smell this eucalyptus and mint. Really clears the sinuses. And you know, I've already said this, I love a musky scent. Citrus and herbal musk smells like fresh out of a woodsy outdoor shower. Sea salt and cedar is like seaside musk. Woo. And with these body washes, you can get this really great foamy lather without any sulfates and using clean, simple ingredients. Smells great, leaves your skin silky smooth and residue free. This body wash is made with plant-based purified ingredients and gentle cleansers. It's sulfate, phthalate, and dye free, plus it's vegan and cruelty free. We love that. It's also pH balanced and uses food grade cleansing salts to keep your skin happy. 𝗦𝗡𝗦𝗡 is always dropping new scents like this summer seasonal Paradise Found line, including scents like 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗏 and rosé. They're available until the end of summer, so get them now before they're gone. And don't forget to try 𝗦𝗡𝗦𝗡𝗑's deodorant and toothpaste, obviously. 3 body washes are normally $27, but using my link in the description below and code Leeja3, you'll get 3 body washes for $17. That's 40% savings just for you. Check it out in the link down below. Thanks, 𝗦𝗡𝗦𝗡𝗏. So in case you've been living under a rock, Alex Jones is a conspiracy theorist who has somehow gained a national platform by spewing absolute garbage on the internet for the past 20+ years. Jones was born February 11th, 1974, an Aquarius, so you know he can't be trusted. Sorry, I don't hate Aquarians, but like, y'all are pretty squirrely. Okay, you can't argue with me there. He was born in Texas, and as a teen, he read the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy by conspiracy theorist Gary Allen, and that was it for him. He was like, yep, this is it. The book basically says that there's an underground group of global bankers controlling global politics, which is very thinly veiled, if even veiled at all, anti-Semitism, and it's a really classic conspiracy that a lot of conspiracy theorists believe and love to harp on about. According to them, Jeffrey Epstein was also involved in this global bank conspiracy as well. It's a whole thing. You can Google it. Okay. Anyway, after graduating high school in 1993, Jones went to community college for a hot minute before dropping out to host a call-in public access television show in Austin. Apparently back then, public access TV in Austin, maybe to this day, I don't know, was really kooky. You could find all nature of people on there, including, in the 90s, Alex Jones.
Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yes, Alex, how you doing?
Pretty good.
I was just kind of curious if it's true that the police can have laser or infrared beams, if you want to call it.
2 events in the 90s really gave him fodder to grow his conspiracy theorist background: the Waco, Texas shooting and the Oklahoma City bombing, both of which, for reasons that we won't get into because I don't want this video to be a feature-length film, gave him all the proof he needed that there was a global conspiracy trying to take people's rights and freedoms away. Anyway, then he switched to talk radio, but got fired after a couple years because his nonstop yammering about conspiracy theories made it hard for the station to sell advertising space because advertisers didn't want to appear next to his ranting. So then he did what any lunatic does when they've been deplatformed. He started a blog. Well, he started InfoWars, which was a news website that spreads conspiracy theories and his own videos. And he started his own internet talk show, which eventually became syndicated across many radio stations throughout the country. At one point, he had more listeners than Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh combined. And his audience skewed younger than traditional alt-right content because it was entirely web-based. And he knew how to put on a show, meaning he just screamed the entire time, which made for good sound bites.
Laughing right back at these psychopathic bastards and telling them that we know exactly who they are and exactly what they're doing.
And it was, of course, funny at first to see this fringe guy out there who seemed so obviously bonkers that you couldn't take him seriously, but the reality is that Alex Jones has spent the last 25 years pushing the same conspiracy theories that have now become mainstream thanks to the legitimacy they were given by Donald Trump. But it started long before Trump and is partially what got him elected to begin with. So all this to say that Alex Jones is a central figure in the clusterfuck that was the Trump presidency, but that's not what this trial was about. For the last 25 years, Jones has also been jumping on every tragedy from 9/11 to school shootings to argue that the government is in on orchestrated plans to fake all of these events to try to gain more control and power. And that's exactly what he claimed immediately on the day of the Sandy Hook shooting in 2012. That day, he got on his show and said that the entire thing was a hoax, the children never existed, and the parents were hired actors in an elaborate hoax by the government to try to take our guns away. And he's been screaming about that for literally a decade. And because his followers are absolutely unhinged, they have taken his word as gospel and made the family's lives a living hell for a decade. Not only did they have to suffer the absolutely devastating loss of a child, but they've also been receiving threats, they're being stalked, they've even been attacked because of Jones's conspiracies. Some families have had to move over and over because their addresses were being leaked and they were being attacked for a decade. So 10 of the families have sued Jones in 4 separate lawsuits for defamation to collect damages from him for the harm that his conspiracies have caused. A reminder that to sue for defamation, the plaintiffs have to show that he publicly made untrue statements that were defamatory and caused them damage to their reputation as a result. A defense to defamation is the truth, meaning a defendant can say that actually what I said was true and here I can prove it, or what I said was an opinion, not a statement of fact. Or I didn't have any reason to know that what I was saying wasn't truthful. However, none of that matters because Alex Jones refused to cooperate in any of the lawsuits against him, so because of his own actions, he was never given an opportunity to present his alleged First Amendment defense. Instead, he refused to turn over documents and evidence, and he refused to testify, all of which are required when you're being sued in civil court. And if you don't do it, if you don't show up, then the person suing you is awarded a default judgment in their favor. And that's exactly what happened here. For 4 years, Jones dragged his feet and the judges eventually awarded default judgments in all of these defamation cases against him in favor of Sandy Hook families. Okay, so then why was he even at trial? Well, the judge was able to say that yes, Alex Jones was liable to these families for damages for defamation, but a separate trial was needed to determine the quantity of damages. So this is an entire trial just to determine the amount that he owed these families. And this isn't uncommon. Damages, especially in cases where the harm isn't monetary, like he didn't steal a specific amount of money from them, he caused them reputational and emotional damage. That's really hard to quantify. So you have experts come up, financial experts, occupational experts, mental health experts, etc., who will come up and testify about reports that they've written up as to how to quantify the damages. And then the defendant will argue against what they found to try to limit his damages as much as possible. So that's what was at stake here, not whether Alex Jones was liable for defamation or not. He was. Instead, the question was how much does he have to pay? Okay, so any trial, whether it's to determine liability or damages, has what's called a discovery phase. This is the time during which each side has the opportunity to gather as much information and evidence as possible about the issue at trial in order to form their case and back up their arguments. They do this typically through 3 basic ways: document requests, interrogatories, and depositions. There's a lot of other tools that they can use, but let's focus on those 3 because they tend to be the most common. So document requests happen in the form of written requests. One side will literally write out document request number 1, any documents pertaining to X, Y, and Z, your financial history, the financial history of InfoWars, emails relating to Sandy Hook, text messages related to Sandy Hook, etc. Then interrogatories are written out in the same way, but instead of requesting actual documents, documents, it's just requesting that the other side answer these questions in a written response. And then depositions are formal interviews that the lawyer takes of other parties and witnesses. A court reporter is present, sometimes there's video recorded, and it allows them to get the people to talk about everything they know related to the case and have that testimony as part of the official record. At this point, pretty much everything, even slightly related to the case, is up for grabs, and each side has to hand over what's being requested of them. Some exceptions to this are documents and information that are protected by like attorney-client privilege, for example, and documents and information that are being requested that aren't relevant to the case even a little bit. Later, before trial, parties will have the opportunity to object to the evidence that the other party is trying to present to court, arguing that it violates like the rules of evidence, for example. But during this discovery phase, pretty much all the information is fair game. And the rules of discovery, not to mention just professional rules of responsibility to be a good practicing attorney, requires attorneys and their clients to turn over everything and comply during the discovery process. If they don't, the other party can file motions to compel, asking the court to order them to comply, and then the court can hold them in contempt or issue sanctions if they don't cooperate. And it was during this process that Alex Jones was asked to turn over any and all emails and text messages that he sent related to Sandy Hook, which would require him to make a good faith effort to search his phone and email records using keywords like Sandy Hook, for example, and turn over whatever he found. And he claimed repeatedly that there was nothing, or otherwise stalled and failed to comply. So for years, he said, nope, no text messages. I didn't find any texts that I ever sent related to Sandy Hook. Okay, and throughout this discovery process, you can imagine tons and tons of data and documents are exchanged between the parties through what's called e-discovery, which is just a fancy way of saying they pass giant files of information and documents back and forth digitally, as opposed to boxes of paper files, which is how it used to go down. And they do this by using fancy, very expensive e-discovery software that allows you to upload tons of documents, mark them, which what are called Bates numbers, so that each page is individually identifiable with a number, and then you go through and you make sure you mark things as confidential and remove privileged communications before you send those documents to the other side. Then once you receive documents from the other side, it's the job of usually a first-year associate or a legal assistant or a paralegal to then sift through all of the documents that have been received to find the juicy stuff, the documents that might help build the case. It's standard practice, and it's a large part of why trials are so astronomically expensive, because you have to pay someone to spend hours sifting through all of these documents. And it's not uncommon for the documents to number in the tens of thousands. When I was that sad first-year associate sifting through those documents, if I got a case with 10,000 documents, that was a relief. Just 10,000? Sick, I'm on it. Okay, so this process of turning over documents happens throughout discovery, but even as trial approaches, the sides can argue that the documents produced were insufficient and the other side should turn over more documents, and so documents can continue to exchange hands up until trial. And it was through all of this chaos that Alex Jones's lawyer inadvertently sent a digital file containing upwards of 300 gigabytes of information, including Alex Jones's complete phone history, as well as confidential medical records of other parties in other of those defamation cases against Alex Jones. And then it came out during subsequent hearings that what happened is that Jones's attorney sent the link to the file via email, then the plaintiff's attorney saw that it contained hundreds of gigs of information, which seemed wrong, given the fact that they were days away from trial, so there shouldn't be that many documents exchanging hands at that point. So he emailed back like, hey, was this sent by mistake? To which Jones's attorney said, yes, please disregard. But then Jones's attorney didn't do anything else. The problem is that please disregard sent in an email is not legally actionable after the documents have already been disclosed. Once they're turned over to the other side, in Texas there's a process for Jones's attorney to have clawed back those documents. He would have to have gone through and stated the exact documents that should not have been turned over and why they were privileged and should not have been disclosed, which he didn't do. And frankly, he couldn't have done that anyway, because most of the documents that were turned over accidentally weren't privileged, and in fact should have been turned over a full year before during the discovery process because they contain messages such as an editor for Alex Jones calling a COVID conspiracy who was pushing another Sandy Hook, indicating that they knew it was bullshit, not to mention the confidential medical records that I mentioned before, which the plaintiff's attorney even knew were so improper that he disposed of them from his own servers. Okay, so this snafu was revealed in a most cinematic way by the plaintiff's attorney on cross-examination of Alex Jones, and it helped to seal his fate. The jury awarded the family of Jesse Lewis with over $4 million in compensatory damages, meaning to compensate the family for the harm that the defamation actually caused, and $45.2 million in punitive damages, which are meant to penalize him for the actions that he took that were especially egregious. And considering the fact that the family was asking originally for a total of $150 million, you could say that Alex Jones's lawyer was at least somewhat successful in minimizing the worst of the potential blow from this trial. But who even is this guy anyway? Who's the lawyer who agreed to represent Alex Jones? Well, he's this guy, Federico Andino Reynal, who's a founding partner of his law firm, and when you Google it, the top hit is this ad imploring you to call now. Call now. Looks like details aren't this guy's strong suit. But honestly, he has a strong resume. He went to Cardozo Law School, a great school, clerked for a federal judge, worked as an associate in big law, spent 3 years as an assistant U.S. attorney in Texas, then founded his own firm. It's like as stereotypical a legal career as you can get. But in recent years, he's taken on more high-profile cases, focusing on criminal defense, including representing a guy who ran a 3D printed gun company who was charged with sexual assault. But honestly, other than a couple skeezy cases, nothing in his background indicates anything weird about this guy. This was honestly likely just a very big blunder, made perhaps by a small law firm that didn't have the staff to handle the clusterfuck that is being Alex Jones's attorneys. And it's possible that he might face larger consequences for this. He could face possible sanctions in one of the other Sandy Hook cases because the documents included those sensitive medical records of people in that case. And there's the potential that Jones could sue him for malpractice. It's unclear whether or not Jones will do that because he would then have to show that but for his lawyer's blunder, Jones would have had a better result at trial, which would be hard for him to prove given the mountain of other evidence against him. But hearings on sanctions in the other case are happening later this month. And legal scholars are saying that this is a blunder that is so uncommon that law professors will be teaching this in their evidence and professional responsibility classes as a cautionary tale for years to come. Jones, for his part, is liable for that nearly $50 million to this family and likely will be more liable for more money to other families that are suing him. However, he recently filed for bankruptcy through InfoWars' parent company, which is very absurdly called Free Speech Systems. Because of his financial ties to the company, the Chapter 11 bankruptcy process has halted the 2 other defamation damages trials pending against him, which plaintiffs' lawyers claim was done specifically as a ploy to continue to hold up those trials. And while Alex Jones is claiming to be bankrupt, the leaked files showed that he was making upwards of $800,000 per day through InfoWars and through selling like prepper shit and diet pills. And now those texts have been turned over to the January 6th committee, which is investigating the attacks on the Capitol on January 6th, which Jones played a role in. He was allegedly in the crowd that day, riling up protesters, though he didn't enter the Capitol building itself. The parents of Sandy Hook victims, specifically Scarlett Lewis, the mother of 6-year-old Jesse who died in the Sandy Hook shooting, are bringing these lawsuits both to be compensated for their pain and suffering, but in Lewis's case, more so as a crusade for truth, to bring truth to light.
Because I wanted you to know that I am a mother first and foremost, and I know that you're a father, and my son existed.
Which is important with the way our country is going right now, and I hope it helps give her hope and make her feel like she's doing something and making a difference and making the horrific death of her child mean something bigger. And I hope that this trial has shown some of Jones's followers that he is absolutely full of horseshit and maybe led some of them to defect or at least question what they're reading from him instead of taking it as gospel. Jones, however, is absolutely going down swinging. During the trial, when he wasn't actually in court, which was most of it. He was live on air mocking Jesse's parents, airing photographs of the judge in the case engulfed in flames, falsely linking the judge to pedophilia and human trafficking, and questioning the intelligence of the jurors, saying that his political enemies cherry-picked the jurors, who were all blue-collar people who didn't even know what planet they're on and were too stupid to decide what monetary damages he should pay. And even though on the stand he apologized to the families and to the jurors for his actions and said that the Sandy Hook shootings were 100% true.
Especially since I've met the parents and it's 100% real.
That isn't going to stop him from doubling down outside of the courtroom. He's undergoing bankruptcy proceedings, found liable for tens of millions of dollars for defamation, and is financially maybe really not doing well. But the nature of the crusade against truth that right-wing extremists have been waging since before 9/11 is that contradiction, hypocrisy, and cold hard evidence do not matter. Reason and logic do not matter. Everything can be explained away by doubt and fear-mongering, and by saying that anything mainstream is wrong, and by thinking that independent Google searches are better source material than vetted publications and experts. Because you can literally find anything to validate your beliefs on the internet. And literally anyone can post anything they want on the internet with largely very little consequence. So it seems that even though the legal system has found Jones to be a liar and a perjurer over and over again, people who want to follow him are likely not going to be dissuaded, given what little weight they put on the truth. And that's the state of our country, my friends. I need a nap. If you enjoyed this and want to support my work bringing you videos like this, please consider becoming a member of this channel or joining me over on Patreon, where you have a lively Discord chat, Leeja's book club, behind-the-scenes stuff, and so much more. Thank you especially to newest Patreon supporter Dixie, and as always, thank you to my royal patrons Old Man Pence, 𝗦𝗡𝗥𝗡𝗦, Ellen L, and Daniel Taylor, and a very special thank you to my multi-platinum patrons 𝗦𝗡𝗥𝗦𝗖𝗧𝗦 and 𝗪𝗔𝗔𝗐𝗍. Your generosity is greatly appreciated and makes this channel what it is, so thank you. Thanks again to the sponsor of today's video, Native. 3 body washes are normally $27, but using my link in the description down below and my code Leeja3, you'll get 3 body washes for $17. That's 40% savings just for you. Check it out in the link in the description below. Thanks, Native. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably also like this video that I made examining how the heck MLMs are even legal. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.